Just to let you know, this episode features themes of death by suicide, emotional abuse, and cancer. Welcome to Filmability. I'm Joel Fisher and I'm the author of Filmability, A History of Disability in Cinema, and this is a podcast all about disability in cinema. Welcome if this is your first time joining me, and welcome back if you've listened to the podcast before. This week I'm watching Muriel's Wedding, the 1994 international hit from Australia that launched Toni Collette's career. It's written and directed by PJ Hogan, and believe it or not, it's partly inspired by his childhood. Hogan went on to direct films in America such as My Best Friend's Wedding, the 2003 version of Peter Pan, and Confessions of a Shopaholic. As I would say, if you haven't seen Muriel's Wedding before, or at least for a very long time, then go and watch it now and come back to me. If you're in the UK, you can find Muriel's Wedding on Amazon Prime for free. Elsewhere, you can find it on any platform to rent or buy digitally. So without further ado, let's talk about the movie. Okay, so the film opens with a wedding bouquet being thrown amongst a group of screaming women. The bouquet is making a noise like a mortar bomb as it falls down. Muriel, played by Toni Collette, is in the middle wearing a leopard skin dress and she catches the bouquet. A woman cries and the other women tell Muriel to throw it again, as that friend was supposed to be catching the bouquet, and that they tell Muriel that she's being selfish. Nice friends. Muriel then gives it to the friend, and the friend then bursts into tears and says that she broke up with her boyfriend last night, so it doesn't really mean anything anyway. And then, as the party continues and people break up after the bouquet has been thrown, there's a man with long blonde hair who's going to be known as Chuck, played by Nathan Kay. And he catches the eye of a bridesmaid called Nicole, played by Pippa Granderson, and they go into the tent. A man with a progression in his nose approaches Muriel while she's sitting and having a drink, and he gives her a business card to give to her father Bill, played by Bill Hunter. Muriel then arrives downstairs and sees Nicole and Chuck having sex. Meanwhile, a police car arrives and a woman says that she saw Muriel steal the dress. It's the same woman with glasses that was seen earlier looking at Muriel because she realised where she'd seen the dress that she'd got on before. Back at home, Bill's on the phone and one of his daughters tells Muriel's mum, Betty, played by Jeannie Drynan, to make a cup of tea. She seems to be in a daze, and she gets the mug and she puts tea bag in it and puts them in the microwave, and because there's no water in it, it's not actually a cup of tea, it starts making sort of funny noises. After the problem with the police, Muriel's brought back home and Bill protests her innocence. He tells his wife to get the police officers a beer, remembering seeing one of them as a child. He's doing the politician thing, he's making friends, he's being nice, he's rubbing shoulders, he's greasing the wheel, that kind of thing. He's that kind of a politician. In Muriel's bedroom, she listens to ABBA and it's Dancing Queen. Her mirror is shown and it has loads of cutouts of women in wedding dresses. And then we see the police car driving off as her dad waves them off. So we clearly get the idea that Muriel really, really wants to get married, and her dad is sort of controlling the family, perhaps. At a Chinese restaurant, Muriel's dad is entertaining some Japanese businessmen, because of course he is. He talks about his family, but he's talking down to them. He's telling them how useless they are. Betty tries to encourage Muriel, but when she says that she's got an apprenticeship, but Bill says that she's too old for that, and he says all the rest of the family are useless. And then a woman called Deirdre comes in. She's played by Ginny Nevison, and it's almost as if it's a complete coincidence that she's seen Bill there. There's nothing about their relationship that would be paid off later. Anyway, she comes in and she offers Muriel a job doing beauty consultancy. And then we cut to Muriel later on, and she's staring at the window of a bridal shop. She's imagining the day that she will be married and everything will be wonderful. Later at the club, Muriel goes to sit down with her friends. Tanya, played by Sophie Lee, is the one whose wedding they were all going to at the start of the movie. And surprise, surprise, she says that Chuck has been cheating on her. And that leads to the camera sort of going around, and Nicole has got a very guilty look on her face. Of course, Muriel knows what's happened, but she doesn't say anything. It's a good moment. The expressions are great, and the whole thing between these characters are really well done. They tell Muriel that they don't want her hanging around with them because she doesn't fit in, and because she's not fashionable like they are. Muriel starts to cry, and you kind of get the idea that Muriel wants to try and compete with Tanya for attention, and that she wants to be seen as the one that they should be feeling sorry for. But that they're not buying it, and they tell Muriel that she's embarrassing them. Back at home, Muriel's brother, Perry, played by Dan Wiley, is playing around in the garden. Betty comes into Muriel's bedroom and encourages her to get up, because she's feeling awful. All her friends have dumped her, and she just really doesn't know what else to do. Betty says that she likes Deirdre, and Muriel shouldn't disappoint her father after the good opportunity that she's been given. It's kind of implied that Betty may know what's going on between Bill and Deirdre, but she is sort of in denial, blissfully unaware, and it's a bit sad, but also I think the audience gets the idea that something's going to come to a head later on. At the holiday resort where Tanya and Chuck were meant to have their honeymoon, Tanya and her friends are all dancing to a Blondie song wearing skimpy outfits. As Muriel has been invited as well, they see her sitting down at a table and having a drink. She's wearing an extravagant outfit, and after their performance they come down and they see her, and because she's just existing, they think that she's drawing too much attention to herself, and they tell her off. The next scene, Muriel's at dinner at the resort, and she meets a woman called Rhonda, played by Rachel Griffiths, who says that she used to go to school with her. Rhonda implies that she's a party girl and thinks that Muriel is there for a fling after she tells Rhonda that she's engaged. So you can see perhaps there's a trail of lies that are starting. The next day, Rhonda goes to see Muriel's friends, and she plays nice. They offer to have a drink with her, but Rhonda understands what's been going on. She's been talking to Muriel, and she says that she's very keen on telling the truth, and just straight up tells Tanya that Nicole has been having an affair with Chuck, and she tells them she rejects the drink. And after they think that she's alone, she reassures them she's not alone, she's with Muriel. Next scene, Muriel and Rhonda are competing in a talent competition, and they're miming to Waterloo by ABBA. They're dressed in great costumes, sort of silvery, tight-fitting, flared. It looks pretty good. It's on a budget, but it's also sort of great looking, and the wigs and everything, the makeup, they look really good. It's almost an exact copy of what they would have done in their music video. It's a good moment, although it may make you wonder where they got the costumes and the wigs from, but considering Muriel's money suddenly coming in, that's probably what happened. Although, we don't have to explain everything that happens, but yeah, it's a good moment. It lifts up the movie. And the camera shows the friends who are sitting at a table together. They're still together. Nicole is still sitting there, although she's got a black eye, which you can understand how that happened. But after Nicole and Tanya catch some eye contact, Tanya launches herself over the table again and attacks Nicole. It's just the constant tension between them, and that now this is the worst thing that anyone could ever do. So it's very funny. Back home, Perry is reading a postcard from Muriel, which is basically telling her lies about how well she's doing at her job. Deirdre then returns and feigns that it was a total coincidence that she just happened to be there at the same time as Bill, but then she pulls him aside and convinces him that Muriel is not telling the truth. In the next scene, Muriel and Rhonda are celebrating, and it's night time, and they're by the pool. They lay next to each other as they look up at the stars, and they start singing Fernando, also by ABBA. You can see a trend in this. I mean, watch the trailer, watch the movie, you'll get it. It's ABBA. Muriel says she feels like she's nothing, though, after all the things that have happened, at the good times, Muriel is still feeling very low. But Rhonda reassures her that she's amazing, and that she's done everything that she wanted to do. She's a success, and from what Muriel told her, she's getting married. In taxi on the way home, Muriel's looking sad, and she looks at a picture of her and Rhonda and contemplates the time together. It's probably the best time that Muriel has had in a very long time, and she isn't sure whether it's going to happen again. When she gets home, Bessie tells her that Bill's angry at her because he thinks that she stole money from them to go on holiday, and he's right. And this prompts Muriel to get back into the taxi that she arrived in, and she heads for Sydney. And as the title comes up on the screen, it says Sydney, City of Brides. Time passed, and Muriel is now working at a video shop. She's watching a videotape of Princess Diana and Prince Charles's wedding, and a man comes to the counter, and he seems a bit nervous when he's talking to her, and just suddenly blurts out that he wants to ask her out. He wants to go out with her. She seems happy to have been asked out, quite frankly, and I mean, he's a nice bloke, he seems okay, But then Rhonda calls the video shop, and they have a bit of a chat, and while the man's standing there, and Rhonda wants Muriel to have a look at this guy. So as Rhonda works across the street, Muriel tells Bryce, who is the man standing there, played by Matt Day, to look over, and Rhonda checks him out, and she says he looks alright, she could do worse. Which is just, accurate, I suppose. Anyway, after Dana later, Muriel tells Rhonda that she's thinking of changing her name to Muriel. And this conversation prompts Rhonda to ask if she's been on the run for the police. I mean, it's fine by Rhonda. She doesn't care. She just wants to know, And I think, although Muriel does want to change her life, I think a lot of that is because she wants to lay low. And, it's not a bad idea. Later on, the club is a big club, lots of music, lots of people, lots of dancing. Rhonda says she's picked up 2 handsome Americans and she's going to go back to their place. Muriel asks Bryce if he wants to dance. He says he's not a very good dancer, but she doesn't mind. And they get up, and he's not a very good dancer, but it's a funny scene. For the short amount of time that Matt Day's in this, he makes an impact. It's very memorable. Back at Muriel's place, they see a lot of clothes thrown on the floor and noises coming from the other room. Rhonda's having a good time. Muriel makes her and Bryce a cup of tea, and she turns on TV, and they both sit down on the single bean bag that they have in the living room. I mean, that goes back years to students who would have massive TVs but only one chair in the room, and it's probably a deck chair or something like that. It's a great little observation. It's very funny. They're watching TV, and Muriel sees Bill on the TV, and it's about the money that she's taken from them, and he makes a plea that he just wants her to come back, and he says that the money doesn't matter. They just want to know that she's okay. it's not coming across like a genuine father who's worried for his daughter. It's coming across as a politician who wants to sort of smooth things over because he doesn't like his family. Then they're not up to his standard, apparently. So they're watching TV, and then Bryce thinks, well, this is the chance, and makes a move on Muriel, and he starts to undress her on the beanbag. He then tells her he's a market inspector, which is sort of a way of trying to clarify who he is. He's very nervous about himself. He wants to be up front, but he also doesn't want to disappoint her, is it? But she says that's alright. And she's laughing as she is being undressed, and in his enthusiasm, Bryce grabs hold of Muriel's leather trousers and, with a great effort, pulls her back and pulls them off her, and hits a bird cage that then smashes a window. Again, it's one of the standout moments in the movie. And then, quickly followed by the two Americans next door, who come in completely naked, and they think that Bryce has done something to Muriel, or that he's planning to. So they start chasing him around the room, and all the while Muriel is on the beanbag, she's giggling, and I don't know for sure, but I sort of maybe like to think that Toni Collette wasn't entirely sure what was going to happen during the scene, because she's killing herself laughing and just having the best time. However, then Rhonda comes in, and suddenly she slides down the wall and sits on the floor and tells Muriel that she can't move her legs. At the hospital, Muriel calls home, and after talking to her sister Joni, played by Gabby Mulgate, she talks to Betty, who asks where she is. Muriel says that Joni told her that Bill had moved out, and that she admits that she took the money. And then in the household, some men in suits come in, and they say to Betty that they know everything and they know what Bill's been doing. So there's a sort of subplot about perhaps Bill's corruption and things that he could be doing. So it's not entirely explained, but it's interesting to see a sort of bit of depth in the character, and that, you know, he might be a corrupt politician. Wow, there aren't many of those these days. Anyway, in Rhonda's room, the doctor tells her that she has a tumour on the base of her spine, and he says that it could leave minor damage on her spinal cord, although, you know, this is an understatement based on what happens. Muriel's outside in the next scene, and although her friend has been diagnosed with a tumour and it could leave her in a wheelchair, she's staring at the dummies in a bridal shop, and she goes inside. She's looking longingly at the dresses, and a sales assistant comes in and asks her when she's getting married, and Muriel just lies her face off. And the next thing you know, she's trying on a wedding dress, and all the while during the scene, Dancing Queen is playing an instrumental. It's the song that helps her to dream about the things that she wants. She also lies and tells the shop assistant that it's her mother that's got cancer and not Rhonda, and the assistant insists that they take a picture of Muriel in the dress, because as she says, her mother's so ill that she can't come and see her, and so that she can't come to the wedding. So taking a picture would show her mother how wonderful she looks in the dress. But in the next scene, Muriel is taking the Polaroids that were taken in the shop, and she's putting them into a photo book. It's this completely obsessive behaviour that's overshadowing everything in Muriel's life, and it's perhaps started to become unhealthy. Next, Rhonda is in rehabilitation. She's being held up by two bars, and she's moving along, trying to get back onto her feet and keep going. She's being helped along by a nurse, and Muriel's there as well, and she's helping. But it looks like Rhonda's spirit has been broken. She asks Muriel how she puts up with her and her struggles, and Rhonda's feeling very sorry for herself. But Muriel says that her life has changed since she met Rhonda, and she's feeling as good as she could possibly ever be. And her song, she used to listen to Dancing Queen, and it was the only thing that made her feel good. But she says that now her life is as good as an ABBA song. And I mean, ABBA are pretty good, so it's a real heartfelt moment. And despite the fact that Muriel may have ulterior motives with the rest of her life, she really does care for Rhonda. Although there are people who have surgery and are faced with disability every day. Although you can see in Rhonda's struggle that she's emotionally broken by this, and she doesn't think that she'll be any better. It doesn't mean that Rhonda should change as a person. And unfortunately, although I think it's more in the script than it is in Rachel Griffiths' performance, I would say that Rhonda changes as a character because of her disability. And we're never really given the chance to see Rhonda go back to her normal self and to carry on with her life as she should do. And I mean, if you were to read into it a bit more, and I mean, I don't think this is how the film is portraying it, but there's a thing where if something's going really well in somebody's life, in a movie or TV show, or if they've done something particularly bad, which is not related to a disability or anything like that, then if you suddenly make the character disabled, then it seems like a punishment. It's striking them down at their highest point, or it's a response to the evil that they have done. I mean, look at villains like Darth Vader or Captain Hook. They are the way that they are because of a response to what they did. Captain Hook was evil because he wanted to kill Peter Pan, and the crocodile took a hand as a punishment, a way to show the audience that Captain Hook was too eager to do what he did, and he suffered with consequences of becoming disabled. And similarly with Darth Vader, he went to the dark side, and he thought he was all powerful, and he was struck down and on the verge of death via Obi-Wan Kenobi and some lava. And so he had to live the rest of his life in a suit which was made to keep him alive. And then he wreaks revenge on the Jedi. Anyway, back to the movie. Back home, Rhonda is going about her life. She's in the wheelchair now and just doing things normally. And there's even a little bit where a delivery man turns up and he has a bit of a look at Rhonda, and they make eye contact, and it's sort of, there's a bit of interest there. But you know, it shows that Rhonda's still attractive. She's still the person that she was before the chair, but it's never really followed up after that, which is a bit of a shame. But I think her time at home, it does show that she wants to go out and do something. So she gets a taxi and she goes to see Muriel. But as she's being driven down there, she sees that Muriel's video shop is closed. But then seconds later, she sees that Muriel is in the bridal shop down the road, and she's got on a wedding dress. You know, this is the thing, because Rhonda hasn't been told that Muriel is getting married sooner than she thought she was, and she's feeling a bit left out. She's sort of feeling a bit pushed aside because, well, she thought that she was a bigger part of Muriel's life, and quite rightly, she goes into the bridal shop and confronts her. To which the shop assistant says that she doesn't care how unfortunate Rhonda's life is. She can't go in there attacking brides, and I think the implication is that she thinks that Rhonda is having a go at Muriel because she's not got the life that she wants. I know it's a joke and it's funny that she's got the wrong end of the stick, but there's this thing that I suppose is directed at all disabled people and not just wheelchair users, that because they are disabled, it means that they are unlucky in love. The implication is that a wheelchair user can't have an active life and they can't do the same things that other people can do. This also has a knock-on effect where people make assumptions. Me personally, I've had women assume I can't do certain things in a relationship because of my wheelchair, and even one woman who said that I may as well be her boyfriend because nobody else will ever want me. Attitudes like that just seem to give non-disabled people excuses to make disabled people feel like crap. Anyway, back to the movie. In the next scene, Muriel gets a call at work, and it's from Bill. She goes back to the restaurant that they were at before, and Bill gets angry at her. This is probably the moment where he's being the father, but he's also, it's a great performance because Bill Hunter plays the character like a father, but also real overtones of a politician. He can never come out of politician mode. He's always putting Muriel down because you could say that some politicians do see working classes as lower than them, and Bill aspires to be better. And then a kid comes in and asks Bill for an autograph and says that his dad says that he doesn't think Bill did anything wrong. He doesn't think he's guilty at all. Again, we don't really know what Bill's done. It's all in the background, but it's really funny. They've sort of got this little kid who's been fully brainwashed by his dad, and again, we don't know what he did, but it's sort of a little slice of life and what's been going on while Muriel's been away. Muriel insists that she's changed her name to Muriel and that she's become a better person because of it, and just sort of ignoring everything else, and she's slightly deluded. Muriel then confronts Bill and tells him that she thinks that he's going to leave Betty for Deirdre, and because Deirdre's there, they all look a bit like, how dare you, sort of trying to keep the affair going, but without actually having to deal with the repercussions. Not yet, anyway. So Muriel comes home and Rhonda's waiting for her, and she tells Muriel that the tumour's come back and that the doctors need to cut through her spinal cord in order to remove it. And Rhonda's feeling really down, and she says that she may as well move back to where they live in a town called Porpoise Spit. Muriel's going through wanted ads at her work, and then she sees an ad for an Olympic swimmer that wants a wife. It's the opportunity that she's been looking for, perhaps. So she then goes to the pool and meets the coach and the swimmer, whose name is David Van Arkel, and he's played by Daniel LePaine. And he gets out of the pool, and he's the big, muscly, blonde, athletic-looking man that perhaps Muriel's been looking for her entire life. And the coach tells her the situation. Says that David is South African, and although he's a white man, it's not a good look for him at the moment to be associated with South Africa because of the problems where black people are being killed. So there's a sort of overtones of racism, and that he wants to distance himself from his country because he doesn't want to be seen in that way. David is unsure about Muriel at the moment. She looks very eager, she's very interested. Of course she is. She's definitely in the right place at the right time. She wants this. But it's sort of implied that David doesn't really fancy her, and he keeps mentioning other women that they talked to before. But the coach assures him that Muriel may be the one that they've been looking for, and that she's perfect as long as she's able to lie convincingly. Well, there's no problem there. So back home, Rhonda is asleep, and Muriel goes to her room, and she puts on Dancing Queen, and it's the theme that brings her back to her home, where it's the time where she's been happy and everything's going in the way that she wants it to go. And then straight away we cut to the church. It's the wedding day. Everyone's there. Rhonda's with her mum. Rhonda's mum is pushing her chair, and she gets Rhonda to a part of the church where she doesn't want to sit, but her mum tells her that at least she won't be in the way of anybody else. The bridesmaids come in, and they also patronise Rhonda, saying that she was so full of life. It's terrible that she's been struck down, and Rhonda assures them she's not dead. But then Tanya comes over and says that she should probably thank Rhonda for what happened, because now she knows what Chuck was like, and that she's divorcing him. And this is a really good scene because it shows how non-disabled people can treat disabled people. It can be family or friends, and I think part of this scene is to do with Rhonda's mum not fully accepting her daughter's disability, which I can understand could be hard for somebody. However, she's seeing Rhonda as a chair, not as a person, and so puts her out of the way. I myself am aware of the space that I take up, and although like Rhonda I use a manual wheelchair, that's not very big, and I do consider where I am and where people are in relation to me. However, there have been times where I have not felt welcome because of my chair. Times when visiting tourist attractions and being warned about not getting my wheelchair too close to valuable objects. And there used to be a local cinema that didn't allow wheelchair users in there because they considered them to be a fire hazard. Hard to imagine now, but this was still within the past 20 years. Okay, so outside, Bill is talking to reporters, and Muriel's wedding car pulls up, and she gets out of the car, and she's in a bridal gown, and she can't stop grinning. This is the moment. This is everything she's been building up to, and she could not look happier. It's all about her. She loves it. She loves the attention, and she loves that everything is going her way. At the church, David is looking nervous, and he turns to see Muriel coming up the aisle to the song I Do, I Do, I Do by, you guessed it, ABBA. Everyone's watching as she's coming up the aisle, accompanied by Bill, and she keeps grinning despite the fact that deep down she may know that there's no chance that this will work out the way that she wants it to. Anyway, Muriel and Bill go down the aisle where David is waiting, and there's the customary handing off the bride to the groom, and he says, "She's your problem now." And then they get on with the wedding. The priest comes in and asks David if he wants to marry Muriel. And there was a short pause for a moment. I mean, this is the point where in the wedding you would think perhaps he's got second thoughts and that you shouldn't be doing this. But then he goes, yeah, why not? Yeah, let's do it. But Muriel, who is completely oblivious to all this, just eagerly agrees, and yes, absolutely, yes, of course you will. But then later on, David is struggling to remember his vows. It's not like he made them up himself. It's that they're the standard vows that are said in church, but he can't remember them because of nerves and being unsure about the whole situation. And the priest has to prompt him in order to get him through it. But Muriel knows them off by heart, and she recites them, and then at the end, David kisses her on the cheek, and the ceremony is ended. They go back out to church, and David ignores Betty, much to her disappointment, because he assumes that Deidre is Muriel's mum. It's an awful moment. It's very sad. I feel really awful for Betty. Outside of the church, Muriel finds Rhonda smoking outside. She's sitting away from everybody else, trying to be discreet, and perhaps, because her mum told her to keep out the way, that, that's what she's decided to do. And she's also very angry with Muriel. Muriel comes up to Rhonda and she says that she's finally happy and that she's shown everyone. It's the moment where Muriel's not doing this for herself. She's doing this because she wants to be better. She wants to show everybody what she can do, and that she can get out of herself and be a better person. And that's not really what Muriel wants, but she is being very blinkered and arrogant about it. Rhonda then tells her straight that she should feel ashamed, and that she feels like Muriel's left her and that she's been abandoned, and living by herself, she can't even pay any of the bills, so she's having to go home. But Muriel says it's okay. She sorted all that out and given a couple of plane tickets to Rhonda's mum. And then the bridesmaids arrived, and one of them gets hold of Rhonda's wheelchair, and they says that they'll be there to push her around. I mean, double entendre there, definitely. However, in real life, and I think it's very well shown in the movie, don't push a wheelchair user's chair without permission. As a wheelchair user myself, it's the way that I get around, and it's part of me. I don't go anywhere without the chair, and the chair doesn't go anywhere without me. So if you push a person's wheelchair within minutes, you're not just pushing the chair, you're pushing me. I'm losing control of what I'm doing and where I'm going, and at times it can feel very disorientating and frustrating. For example, about 15 years ago, I was in a pub. It was very busy with lots of people there and loud music and karaoke. And somebody decided to push my chair. And I turned and said, it's fine, don't worry, I don't need to be pushed. But this person ignored me. And, after a couple of seconds, shoved me forcibly into a crowd of people. And I was very careful. I put my hands on the wheels. I made sure I didn't hit anyone. But that was the point that I snapped. I rounded on this guy. I turned round and I screamed bloody murder at him. And, I was the loudest person in the pub, which is saying something considering what was going on. I have never felt so much adrenaline run through me. It was a violation. I felt like somebody had taken me and done something to me that I did not want them to do, and I was going to let him know what he'd done wrong. And I think maybe he got away with it, although at least he didn't learn his lesson. I was very much ready to tear him a new one, and one of my friends pulled me away and took me outside and got me to calm down, and which took a while because all the adrenaline was coursing through me. It was a horrible feeling. And the next time I got a new wheelchair, I didn't have any handles because that moment had completely thrown me. It made me feel like somebody I wasn't. And so if you see a disabled person, a wheelchair user, and you think you want to push their chair, either you're being helpful or you think, well, that looks like fun, don't do it. You don't know how that person will respond. Well, I mean, if it's anything like me and there's nobody else around, you might live to regret it. Just leave a person alone. If they're struggling with their wheelchair, ask them if they need help. If they don't need help, then okay, that's fine. Never grab a person's wheelchair without their permission. I can't emphasise this enough, and I probably have overemphasised it, but this is how strongly I feel about it. Okay, so back to the movie. Muriel and David are back at his place. Muriel finds that David only wants to win, and that means that they've got something in common, that he wants to do the best he can, and she does as well, but she's starting to feel like she maybe lost everything, and that there isn't really any love in the marriage. It's just a facade, which it is. At a supermarket, Bessie is looking through the aisles and she picks up some shoes, and absentmindedly she tries them on and she walks out of the shop without paying for them. And the same woman who we saw earlier, who accused Muriel of stealing a dress, sees Bessie taking the shoes. And then later on, in the next scene, at the police station, Bill's there and he makes Bessie apologise, saying that she's not right in the head. He's completely abusing his wife. He's belittling her. He's making her feel small. He's treating her like a child, basically. At home, Bill packs a suitcase. He's had enough, and he says he's leaving Betty for Deirdre. a moment that, you know, the audience has seen coming, and that he also tells Betty he wants a divorce. It's the kind of thing that abusive men do. They make the other person in the relationship feel like it's their fault, whereas Bill is negligent. He's abusive. He just doesn't give a crap about anyone other than himself. Bill tells Betty that he thinks he never became a senator because he was told that his family wasn't good enough, and he thinks that that's true. And as he leaves, Betty takes it out on Perry, telling him to get a job when there is an embarrassment, to which Perry replies that she's the embarrassment, and she's left crying in the kitchen. At David's place, Muriel is watching the wedding video while he's in the pool, which is further enforcing their own motives, and really there is nothing there. There is no love. There is just the facade of a marriage. And she gets a call from Joni, unfortunately telling her that her mum has died. Muriel goes home, and Deirdre's there helping out, and she tells Muriel that she thinks that maybe Betty dying would have been the best thing because she made the ultimate sacrifice, and she thinks that she did it because of Bill's troubles in court, and that it will help him because he's got a family to look after now. I mean, as if he ever did in the first place. It's horrible, you know. It shows that maybe Bill and Deirdre are made for each other. Muriel looks out into the garden, and it's completely barren and burnt, and basically there's been a fire. Perry tells her that Betty did it. So she was tired of him not doing anything about it, so she took care of it herself. And that's quite a dramatic way of doing it. And quite frankly, with somebody who was at the end of their tether, that it sounds exactly like something that they do. Going back to her bedroom, Muriel's sister says that her mum took some sleeping pills, and that's how she died. And then we cut to the church again, but this time it's Betty's funeral, and the people attending are singing loudly. They're really making a show of it, and the minister reads out a message from the former Prime Minister. And this is the point where Bill, his ego, if it needs inflating even more, is very proud at the moment, and that shows that he's still got friends in high places. I think there are reporters there, and he's even making his own wife's funeral about him. Horrible man, but it's all sort of the dark humour of the movie, really. The minister then also says that Betty thought attending Muriel's wedding was one of the best moments of her life, and this is the moment where Muriel realises everything that's happened and realises how selfish she's been, and she runs out of the room. She goes back to her and David's place and tells David that she feels like she's becoming her father. Similarly with her father's ambitions to be a politician, hers to get married and live an idyllic life has overtaken everything and blinkered her to what's really important. And that's when David kisses her, and it implies that they are sharing a passionate moment. And later on, after David is asleep, Muriel calls the hotel reception for a taxi, and when he wakes up, she tells him that she can't stay married to him, and she wants to go and own up to all the lies that she's made. She's taking responsibility for her life, unlike her father did. So, however, David says that he could get used to having her around, even if he doesn't love her, but he understands, and he wishes Muriel good luck, and she leaves. Back home, Bill tells Muriel that he needs help with the family, and that she needs to stay to look after them, and he can't do it all by himself. She pays him back most of the money that she stole in the first place, and she says that she wants him to take responsibility because, you know, he is their father and he is fully capable. He just needs to put his priorities in the right order, just like she's doing. He replies by talking about the message from the former Prime Minister at Betty's funeral, and that it wasn't as a spontaneous message as it may be implied, and that Bill had to pull a few strings, make a few calls to get it to happen. It sort of feels like he's owning up to not being the powerful, popular politician that he's made himself out to be, which everybody does really know. Then Joni comes out on the balcony and Bill tells her that Muriel's going back to Sydney. Rhonda is at home with Muriel's friends and they're talking about Tanya's problems again. It's all feeling like Rhonda is stuck in their situation and she's surrounded by idiots and her mum isn't really much help either. Muriel then comes in and says that she's broken up with her husband and she offers to take Rhonda back to Sydney. And rightly so, Rhonda tells Muriel that she can't just barge in and expect her to come with her after what she's done to her. But then she realises how miserable her own life is and that she agrees to go with Muriel. And as they're leaving in the taxi, Rhonda and Muriel say their goodbyes to the town by shouting out of the car, and they smile at each other, and it's a nice moment. They're going to move on to better things. However, I would be doing Muriel's wedding an injustice if I didn't talk about Rhonda and how she became a wheelchair user and loses all agency. It's not just because of the personality change that occurs in her character, but that she doesn't have anything unless it involves Muriel. In 1992, the Disability Discrimination Act came into force in Australia, and although attitudes were the biggest problem at the time, and probably are still worldwide, it doesn't mean that Rhonda should have downed tools and forgotten about everything before she became disabled. I also don't mean that Muriel's wedding should have been a platform to highlight the rights of a disabled person at the time, but it feels like Rhonda was a wasted character. She could have picked up her own life and done her best to do something for herself, but instead she blames it on Muriel, that she can't live independently, and when Muriel comes calling, she forgives her really easily. So that was Muriel's wedding, and up next I'll be giving my own thoughts on the film as a whole, and what the portrayal of disability means for the audience. Muriel's Wedding is a wonderful comedy that still holds up today and gives a female character something in her life other than just pining for a man to come and save her from a humdrum life. Muriel doesn't just want to find love per se, she wants to get married, and the wedding is the thing that drives her to do what she does, whatever the cost. Toni Collette's breakthrough performance is well deserved and it's outstanding, showing her range as an actress and a hint at what she could be capable of doing in her career in Hollywood. Muriel's Wedding feels like a very Australian production, but it's the relatability of being able to get out of your own head and move on to better things that was probably what drew in an audience, not to mention the ABBA soundtrack. Toni Collette and Rachel Griffiths have great chemistry, but sadly Rhonda's character gets literally pushed to the side, and, in my opinion, could have served the film even better if she was still close to Muriel, perhaps still trying to make her see the error of her ways. Saying that though, it seems increasingly more difficult to imagine an original film with a single writer-director having such an impact with audiences today, amongst all the franchises and blockbuster movies. Okay, so now that I've told you everything that I've thought about the film, let's talk about the trivia. Okay, so first up I can tell you that P.J. Hogan based Muriel's personality on himself, but Muriel's actions were inspired by his sister who embezzled $15,000 from their father and then disappeared to Sydney to live with a friend. Muriel's home is also based on Tweed Heads, the hometown of P.J. Hogan, and was also used for filming locations. When he was denied permission to use ABBA's music in the movie, P.J. Hogan went to Europe in order to talk to the members of ABBA. He eventually got permission when he agreed that they would receive a percentage of the film's profits. It was a big hit and it helped to inspire Mamma Mia, the musical of ABBA's songs, which again in turn got turned into a blockbuster movie. Bill Hunter was filming The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and Muriel's Wedding simultaneously, each requiring him to have different lengths of hair, beard, and to be in different places of the country. Both films developed international cult followings and prominently featured the music of ABBA. He also appeared in the hit movie Strictly Ballroom, a poster of which could be seen in the video shop where Muriel works. The photographs in the Heslop family album are actual childhood photos of the actors who portray the family. This is also Rachel Griffith's debut movie. Among the other actors who were considered for the part of Bryce were Guy Pearce and Eric Bana, and also among the other actors who were considered for the role of Bill were Brian Brown and Paul Hogan, although Paul Hogan is no relation to PJ Hogan. And finally, a little bit of trivia of my own, because if you thought that Pauper Spit was a funny name for an Australian place name, then I have news for you. There's a place called Eggs and Bacon Bay, Sauce Bottle Swamp, Sausage Gully, Quality Knob, Prominent Knob, and Spanker Knob, which is only probably funnier if you are British. There's a place called Mossy Nipple Bend, Boobs Flat. There's a place called Nowhere Else, Fanny Bay, which is funny in America and in the UK. And there's also a cave called Well It Wasn't There Last Year, which was a result of a survey where they missed it the first time. There's a place called Prickly Bottom, The End of the World, Shaghead, Mount Blowhard, Bum Cooler Flat, Bullshit Hill, Stinkhole, and finally Cockwash Creek, where you can wash your chickens, and Pisspot Creek. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week I'll be talking about the Oscar-winning movie Coda, a film about a teenage girl who wants to be a singer, but she doesn't think that her deaf family will understand where she's coming from. If you'd like to contact me, you can do so via Bluesky at bluesky.com/film-ability. You can also email me at film-ability@outlook.com. And if you'd like to make a contribution to the things that I do here, you can find me at Patreon at patreon.com/film-ability. You can also find my book at Amazon on Kindle and paperback called Film Ability, A History of Disability in Cinema. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.